Welcome to High Heels in the High Country. I'm Rob Cope-Williams. Well, there's a lot more cows on the plains than there used to be, and cows may be the right thing or maybe the wrong thing, because there's a lot of other livestock that are enjoying the pastures and the pleasant views. Running a successful alpaca stud, breeding and exporting animals around the world might not seem like the sort of business to stumble into. However, that's just what Linda Blake did. The alpacas came with her partner. Having made the decision to take on both their owner and the herd, Linda decided that the alpacas had to do more than be just a pet.
Having come from a lifestyle block myself, one of the first things I said was, why aren't these girls all pregnant? And why are there bags of fleece stuck in the wardrobe, in the cupboards and under the bed, which was very common in those days for alpacas, because people didn't actually have them as a commercial function, they just had them as pets. So I guess that comment is what changed where we were going. And we soon found that we had a decade where the two of us left our real jobs in town and were working entirely on the farm here, running a commercial alpaca farm.
But the business isn't just about making money. Alpacas are popular pets, and it's easy to see why.
So this guy's a pet boy, and he's quite interested in what's going on. They are an animal that can be used for pets as a companion animal, and a lot of people do. They're also an animal that are taken into the show ring, much as people have ponies, and judged on their fleece and their conformation. This is a good specimen of an alpaca, nice straight back, good square trunks of legs on either corner, nice, good, strong head, well conformed, good ears, and reasonable fleece, because they're judged on the fleece as well. So the commercial part of it is not just the pet and companion animals and the showing, it's also about the product, which essentially is the fleece. Although we do have in New Zealand now some people involved in the meat and hides industry as well.
Alpacas are often confused with their bigger relation, though they're less alike than it might seem.
Llamas and alpacas are closely related. They both belong to the camel family. Llamas are a bigger animal. Alpacas have pointy ears. Llamas have banana-shaped ears. Llamas are also big enough to carry loads, your golf clubs and your picnic, and take them for walks accordingly, whereas alpacas aren't beasts of burden at all.
As far as their temperament are concerned, we hear about them spitting and being rather nasty.
Well, I think everybody has a defence mechanism, and alpacas have two. The one from the front is indeed a spit, where they bring up their regurgitated feed. They have 3 stomachs, and so this extra feed comes up. It's a bit like fine grass clippings, but with a different sort of odour.
Pungent.
Yes, definitely. And from the back, they have a reflex kick. If I touched him on his back leg now, on his back flank, he would kick. So everything has to have a defence in nature. They're not normally going to spit unless it's arguing over something. Like this guy, if another boy came along and there was a girl, they'd definitely fight and argue and spit. Or if there was only one lot of food, they'd spit. So normally they don't waste a good spit on a human being.
Despite any similarity to sheep, a herd of alpacas needs considerably less care.
They don't need dagging, thank goodness, because they lift their tails and dung in a common dung pile. They do need shearing once a year. We'd normally clip their toenails at the same time, because they have a soft toes with toenails and a soft pad underneath, like a dog's pad. We do drench on a regular basis, and we do also belong to the voluntary TB scheme for travelling and moving the animals.
There's a great deal of travelling that goes on with Linda's alpacas, because it's a commercial business and the markets for both the livestock and the product is offshore. The decision to make a commercial operation had expensive consequences.
Well, we started off with basically the pet market. People liked alpacas and they sort of sold themselves, really. And then we thought, well, we need more of these. And as we looked at getting more, it was then about quality as well, because we started to look at what was happening overseas, travelling and going to the international conferences, and particularly in Australia and the States, and realising there were better alpacas. So in about 1993, we started importing animals, both from Australia and from the States. So that gave us 2 new things to think about. It gave us more animals and access to better quality animals. So from there we were actually able to develop some good, strong breeding lines. We saw a nice young male we liked in the States, and $100,000, and quite a lot of time later he landed here, and his owner told us he was a very keen worker. So despite the jet lag, he worked on his first day and got a pregnancy.
And that was Brutus?
That was Brutus. Alpine Fibre's Brutus, and he's had 680 kids since. And he's also got grandchildren all around the world because his offspring have been exported. We started exporting about 1998. We had enough animals and started exporting animals, and they're all around the world now.
Shipping livestock offshore requires meeting a host of regulations.
Different countries have different regulations, but for a start, this area here you're not allowed to cross into unless you're in your gumboots and your overalls and you've signed the book and cleaned your feet in a disinfectant. And we have them in here for quite some weeks. There's a large number of tests that have to be run that they have to pass successfully. Different countries have different tests. And some countries we can export them fully shorn. These particular ones are going to Taiwan to a breeder who wants to show what their fleece is like and educate people about fibre. And they'll have to go fully shorn, but the fleece is going separately.
So what are they used for overseas?
A bit like New Zealand. They're used obviously for their fibre, they're used for pets, particularly in the petting zoos in the Asian market where people like to go and interact with the animals. They're used to go to shows and that whole thing about having a pet that can give you status in a show. And they're used for breeding again. And also, of course, breeding to generate more alpacas to interest and sell to more people who want to be involved.
Colours?
All colours. It's fashionable, it's a fashion thing. Sometimes people are looking for white. Over time, the Peruvian animals in particular have been bred for white and for finer fibre, and that's where we've tried to head into the finer fibre, because that white, of course, can be used in any industry. It can be dyed as well. But there's also a strong interest in colours. At the moment, there's quite an interest in the different colours, so we've got greys and browns and blacks and fawns and all shades in between. They say there's about 22 shades, and they like the variety. This particular shipment, because it's for a breeder and fleece education, they want solid alpacas, solid in one colour. But we've done quite a few shipments to Taiwan where they want animals with different types of patches of colour on them. And we've also worked with a local llama breeder to export llamas on the same basis. So they get a lovely variety of colours, which is kind of visually appealing and suited for that petting market.
Inside the store is where Linda displays the cleaned and sorted wool along with an array of items woven from the natural fibre. One of the primary crops from an alpaca is its woolen coat. Just like a sheep, alpacas are shorn and their fleece sorted for processing. There are a number of tools that Linda makes use of in her woolshed.
This is an alpaca wand for cleaning alpacas. We saw them in the States and a good number 8 wire story. We now make them in New Zealand. These are actually used to brush down the alpaca and their fleece before we shear them. And this motion creates an electrostatic force and out jumps the hay and bits of vegetation and all those things that the alpaca finds and picks up in the paddock on its fleece. So it means we've got a much cleaner fleece to begin with before we start shearing. We also will take a sample off the mid-side of the alpaca and get a micron test. So by the time we've actually shorn and the fleece is coming across the table, I know what micron fleece I've got, I obviously know what colour I've got, and we're only going to shear it when it's a suitable commercial length. And from then, we can actually decide and class as we go into the products that we produce. Each fleece is spread out on the table to begin with, and we want it to be a certain length, about 3 to 4 inches for manufacturing length. We want to get rid of anything that's longer and coarser, and so for instance here's some here. This is particularly hairy, and this fleece, if it was put into a garment when it was dyed, this hairy guard hair would take colour differently. So we want to get rid of that, and that's gone. We want to get rid of any little short bits that there's likely to be, because the short bits is what creates the pilling or the rubbing on a fabric when it's put into a yarn. So we want to get rid of those. We want to make sure we get rid of most of the vegetation tips that are on here, any bits of hay and things that's still left. So what we end up with is a fleece that's uniform in its length, its colour, its micron and the way it handles, and that gives you a better product when you're making your yarn and then your garment.
What happens to the bits you've just dropped on the floor?
Some bits that we've dropped on the floor will be rubbish, but very little of it is, because some of that fleece is going to be going into these fadges. So some of these ones, which we can't put against our skin, will be for duvets. And then for some that's a lower category grade again, we'll go into this fleece for upholstery. You can see ours is a lot hairier and a lot coarse and a lot stronger fleece. So even though it mightn't be our top product for our yarns, every bit of the fleece is used in a product. And there's very little rubbish and leftover fleece nowadays.
Inside the store is where Linda displays the cleaned and sorted wool, along with an array of items woven from the natural fibre. It's a lot softer than the merino.
It's very interesting, isn't it? Because when you look at this, which is fleece, it's just straight off the animal. It doesn't have any greasy feel to it. And this one's a 16 micron fleece, but it feels the equivalent of about an 11 micron merino. It feels about 5 micron finer than the comparable micron merino.
Quite strong.
It's strong, it's hard wearing, it's warm, it's light.
It's quite crimpy. And
yes, we've been breeding for very fine, very crimpy fleece. This will be a brooder's son, actually, that this fleece is off. And so, yes, we're endeavouring to get the fine fleece because we can get a much wider range of products out of finer fleece. We started off selling the natural fleeces, and there was a huge demand because there's more fleece colours in the natural than there is, for instance, with sheep. And the blacks are blacker and the whites are whiter. But then market likes colour. So we thought, how can we actually introduce colour? So this was an innovation I decided to do, and actually introduce colour by putting silk with the alpaca. So 20% silk in each of these alpaca fleeces, and dyed and then merged in with the actual fleece. So this is an adding of value from raw fleece to carded and then to carded fleece with colour. So we actually move up in adding of value and move up in the terms of price of what we can get for our fleece.
So what would that be used for now?
These fleeces are generally used in the handcraft market. We have a wide number of people all over the world who order from our website, as well as, of course, our very strong New Zealand clientele. We go to the annual Creative Fibre Festival with our products, and they're always in great demand. So normally this would be then used by someone who's going to spin and then create a knitted garment or a woven garment, or it may even be used for felting.
The jacket you're wearing?
Yes, alpaca drapes well, takes colour well, keeps shape well, moves well, and this is one of my Jacob's coat of many colour, and I actually love it. It's even got pockets in here which you'd hardly even see, and it's many years old.
How does it wash?
It washes really well, but I would always lie this garment flat to dry it, because it does keep its shape, but you wouldn't want to hang it upright wet.
Linda's spectacular coat is just one of the many end uses for the alpaca fibre that she grows and processes.
We like to use the entire alpaca fleece. So the main fleece here is used for our top quality products, and the fleece around the legs areas, which isn't as nice on the alpaca because it's a bit more prickly, goes into things like the duvets and the pillows, where we still have the warmth and that quality of the alpaca, but it's not against your skin.
So the blanket bit is the knitting wool?
So the blanket bit here goes into our yarns and our knitting wools, and in particular our very, very soft 2-ply with the very lovely scarves that you can knit from this, and as well as our 4-ply and our 8-ply. So the more you add value, the more you're going to get. So our fine knitting yarns make a beautiful knitted garment. There are people making lovely felted garments, and including the Nuno felting, which is done on silk and has holes deliberately, right through to, say, woven products, the scarves, and a boucle woven product, which is very popular for the bed throws. So these are all New Zealand made, and this is all good quality fleece going into wonderful products, as well as things like our socks, which are New Zealand made as well.
A rural boutique business that started with a love of wanting to keep her children warm.
I just started looking at finding out where had all our wool gone in New Zealand and where had all our wool clothing gone in New Zealand.
As you will have seen on High Heels in the High Country, there's a lot of farms that are producing more than the traditional. Emma caught up with someone who's keeping more than just her toes cosy.
A rural boutique business that started with a love of wanting to keep her children warm.
I noticed that there was no warm socks for them on the market, and it was because of my upbringing that I knew about wool. And so one thing led to another.
That upbringing was in North Canterbury. Tracy Robinson spent her holidays lambing, feeding out and sharing with her dad and grandfather.
I guess that's where my knowledge has come from. My mother was a knitter, and she we would say, oh, you know, I wanted a jersey made, and she'd go, oh, but it's not wool, or, you know, and so all this was getting inbred in me, I guess. And Dad would point out into the shearing shed. He would sort of say, oh, your hand's nice and soft, oh, that's the lanolin, or he would, you know, pull out the fleece and say, oh, this is a really good fleece, you know, feel how strong it is.
Which left Tracy curious. Just where was all the woolen clothing for her two children?
I just started looking at finding out where had all our wool gone in New Zealand, and where had all our wool clothing gone in New Zealand, and what had happened to our manufacturers. So then kind of looked at all the history, so did a lot of research online.
Looking for a product like no other.
It's like gold. You just couldn't get a better fibre for dressing your children in.
Marking the early days of the Cozy Toes business.
I suppose I'm quite a practical person. I decided to do something about it and bring these little socks back onto the market.
And with a little nudge in the right direction from her family, the business took off, now operating out of here, a small shop at the back of her rural home in Rotherham.
I think it was my brother that sort of said, oh, go on, you need to add to this business. And then I found a local factory that did clothing, or merino clothing, and so added to that. And then now I sort of just grow with what my customers are looking for, and what I can see is there's a gap in the market.
So it all started with the baby socks, did it?
Yes, yeah. This was the first style of socks that I started with, and also for children as well. So yeah, it's still as strong as ever, and yeah, still just as popular. So customers reorder these. Basically, their children are growing out of them rather than the socks wearing out, which is really good.
But it's not just baby socks as well. You've got another whole range here.
Yes, yeah. So sort of 6 months after I began, I recognised that there wasn't much merino wear for babies on the market either, so began manufacturing baby wear as well in merino, so this as well.
It'll be clothes
and then also just in the last few months there seems to be more of a demand for school uniform merino as well, so we've been manufacturing a bit of merino wear for underneath school uniforms, strict school uniform regulations, and socks and tights, which seem to be, great to get the merino back into the school wear as well.
So that's just part of it evolving, isn't it?
Yes, yeah. Yeah.
And all skincare and things as well, I see.
Yes, yeah, just added a little bit of skincare. Those that know wool know that lanolin is in wool, great for the skin. So yeah, it's just all added interest to the business.
These products aren't unique to New Zealand. Tracy sends them all over the world, including Australia and the United States.
I've had an order that's been to Alaska, of all places. So yeah, just bits and bobs go here and there.
Defying the odds about needing a piece of paper to prove she's capable of running a successful business. She's even won awards for it.
I have no qualifications. I've learnt a lot along the way of actual having to do the things and watching what others do. I've got other friends in business and probably watch what they do and not copy, but think, oh, that's a good idea. I can use that in my own business, and yeah. But all aspects of the business I do myself, and it's learning along the way. I read a lot.
Being a rural-based business, social media has played a large role in keeping Tracy connected with her customers, as well as a useful tool to help keep it running.
Cozy Toes is on Facebook, and this is also a crucial part of keeping in touch with my customers. So I think if you didn't use social media now in a business like mine, you'd be pretty much struggling
What type of things do you post on your Facebook? Do you just messages or?
Well, what I'm doing, messages from me, messages of interest about the wool industries, trying to keep it all related, new product launches, competitions, giveaways, yeah, anything new really of interest.
When those orders come in thick and fast, the scene of this tidy shop is much different. It's pretty tidy in here today, but this isn't what it normally looks like, is it?
No. What happens is the orders come through and then they're printed off, and I basically am pulling things off the shelves and out of boxes, and then just putting them in their rows and putting them on the floor, and then they just get all bagged up and ready to go.
But where to next for this boutique rural business?
Who knows where it'll go, but it's a big wide world out there.
Tracy's done a good job at proving no matter what size town you come from, you can be just as successful as those in the big city.
So that's our high heels in the high country. Join us again when we introduce you to more interesting women doing some interesting things in what is a very interesting countryside.